I think the best moment ever, which was outrageously touching, was watching your kid.
Yeah.
After the Wyndham, and your boy comes up to you, and he goes, "Daddy, you won."
You won. Yeah.
You won.
Daddy, you won! Daddy, you won!
That was powerful.
Yeah, that was sheer joy.
Yeah.
That different approach, that separate approach, that more attacking approach of, I have this, it's beatable, and here's how we're going to do it.
Fear is a wall I must climb, and I've seen some heroes in my day, seen the failures in yours, and I try to...
Really good.
I think it's got a shot. Damn.
Stymies. I'm giving that one to you.
There we go. I'll take it.
Hook.
All right. I like it.
I think the wind got it.
I'll give that one to you. Pick it up.
All right, you got it.
All right. I'm here with pro golfer Lucas Glover. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Jamie.
Tremendous story, perseverance, courage, grit, mental toughness. 2009 U.S. Open champion. Bethpage Black, one of the hardest golf courses in the country, actually has a warning sign on it. Do not play unless you're a skilled golfer, which you obviously are. Tiger Woods in his prime, Phil Mickelson in his prime. Same question I asked Mike Tyson. What does that feel like emotionally the night before, the morning of? You're walking to that first tee, bam, there's people there, there's cameras. You're about to tee off. Tell me about what that feels like.
Yeah, it was a strange week to begin with, Jamie. We had crazy amounts of rain. I actually didn't start the event until Friday and only played 5 holes Friday evening. So there wasn't a lot of that standard sleep on a lead, sleep on a good round type situation, which probably was a benefit. But there was some anxiety there Sunday night because we had a Monday finish because of the weather. And we were starting on the second hole because I'd played the first hole Sunday night. But sleeping on being in contention, being right there with Ricky Barnes in the last group was definitely a new scenario for me, a major being in the hunt for real. There wasn't a lot of time for the nerves, but the nerves were there just because of the situation. Different than, say, if you're sleeping on the lead in a U.S. Open Saturday night, you got all day Saturday, all afternoon Saturday, and then Sunday morning to think about it. It was more bam, bam, bam for us because of the situation, because of the weather. All right, we're here. We got in this position, so what are we doing right? As opposed to what could go wrong. And I think that's a big thing for athletes and for people and everything is, all right, what am I doing right to be in this situation? And for me, that was, well, I'm putting nicely, driving it nicely, hitting my irons pretty good. So the focus there on that Sunday night and Monday morning was, let's keep doing what's working. I did a nice job of not thinking about what could go wrong or what might go wrong. It was more of, I'm executing at a high level. Let's just keep doing what we're doing.
So when you're teeing off, I know it was the second hole, but that first tee shot, you're standing there. I think you were 1 off the lead at the time. It's not like Mike Tyson told me he was afraid every time he got in the ring. The ones he wasn't, he lost. So it wasn't fear, and you didn't have a ton of doubt. You were sort of just ready to go. Anything you tell yourself to motivate you and just get you ready to perform?
More of that, just let's execute at a high level. If we weren't playing well, we wouldn't be in this situation. If we weren't doing a lot of good things, we wouldn't be here in this situation. Were there nerves? Absolutely. He's 29 years old, first time in contention at a major. Tiger's a couple groups ahead. Mickelson's in the group ahead. David Duval's resurging. His career at the time, playing with Ricky Barnes, who got it in double digits for like the second time in U.S. Open history. So there's a lot going on there. So yeah, there were nerves, but then you focus, all right, the task at hand here is still execute at a high level. And on that golf course, that's getting it in the fairway first, and then you go from there. No fear, but nerves at that point, yes.
And is there, what I thought was interesting was you weren't necessarily playing your best on that final round.
Yeah.
I think going into, so you bogeyed 15. I think you were +4 going into 16.
Yep.
Mickelson, the whole crowd in New York is chanting his name. Could you hear that?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the coolest thing about Bethpage. Those last 4 holes is like a proper arena. You cross the street coming from 14, and then you go over to 15T, 16 greens right there, 17 tees right there, 17 greens up on top of the hill, and then 18 kind of lines the background. So it's its own little 4-hole arena.
So they're chanting
right
Phil,
there.
Phil, Phil.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can hear it.
Oh yeah, I could hear it. They're pulling for him.
The fan favorite was now tied with Glover for the lead late in the final round of the U.S. Open.
I knew Tiger was going to make a move, and he did. I mean, they were 1 and 2 in the world at the time, I believe, and you knew it was coming.
Yeah,
Or
the
I
ball's
knew it,
right there.
I
Right.
knew it was coming.
Yep.
It was just a matter of when and how close could they get, because we'd separated a little bit.
Yep.
But it was just a matter of when, not if.
Right.
At that point with those two, you knew they were coming, and we had to hang on and combat what they were doing.
I think what's interesting though, so Phil catches you, crowd's going crazy, chanting Phil, Phil, Phil. You heard it. You go into 16, hit a great drive, right down the middle. You got 175 yards out. I think you had an 8-iron, which is huge.
Yeah.
It was a downwind.
Downwind, a little bit.
So, things aren't really going well until that point.
Shot by Glover.
So what were you thinking there? And then you come back and make a huge birdie.
Yeah. It was, I got in the fairway and an 8-iron or 175, a little downwind. That's a great number for me. We get a good number, we're going at it. And it was kind of like now or never situation.
So it was an aggressive mindset.
Yeah, aggressive mindset. We got a good number. It's full. It'll get there. And the beauty of it was, and I've said this, 6-7 feet, and it was a downhill putt, so you're not worried about getting it to the hole. So it was just get it on line. But everything was aggressive at that point. Everything
There was no fear, there was no doubt.
No, it was,
I'm going to win this.
here's our chance. Here's our chance to separate. Here's our chance. Up until that point, it was a little bit of hang on because, it was playing hard. It was US Open, 3 or 4 over it and terrible. But in the last group, at that point, it was kind of like, all right, we're hanging.
Right.
And then I finally got that good number with a good look at a good pin for me there on 16, and I executed. I hit a nice shot, and then I'm not going to say the putt was easy, but it being downhill and a little right to left for a right-hander, you kind of like that because you just get it going, and it's going to get to the hole.
And then you closed out 17-18, which isn't easy.
Yeah,
Just to par out is not the easiest.
Yeah, I talk about 17 a lot. Shots I'm most proud of, and that tee shot on 17 was probably it, because anybody that knows anything about my game, I've always been a hooker drawer of the golf ball. Well, that pin was up on the top tier in the middle of the green, but very close to the right edge, and under pressure you don't really want to have a big putt up and over a hill,
Right.
because speed is so difficult. So I had to play left of that pin, and for me, I had to not hit a draw there.
Gotcha.
So I took one less club and kind of held off, almost hit a little fade to keep it on that shelf. That was a little out of my comfort zone, but executing that shot is probably the shot I'm most proud of from that tournament.
So it was something you were uncomfortable with down the stretch, and you did it aggressively without fear.
Yep, but it needed to be done to give myself the best chance to 2-putt on a very difficult par 3. I didn't want to have to go up and over that probably 18, 20-inch rise, because pace would have been an issue.
And then I think this is interesting. So I just interviewed William Shatner somewhat recently, and he's done a lot of live theater, stand-up comedy, and he equated it to the courage of a madman, that you're always trembling on the edge of disaster. And I've played tournament golf. It's extremely difficult, and I think for people that don't play, I think people that play get it, but the people that don't is just how hard this game is.
Yeah.
I mean, there is failure everywhere.
Yeah, you learn how to lose. There's never been anybody win, as much as Tiger, but nobody's ever won over half of their events. And I just played my 500th event in 2023, and I've got 6 wins. You learn how to fail, you learn how to lose, and this game will kick you.
Yeah.
But it's what I tell juniors, it's what I tell people in the Pro-Am. I said, the ball's round and the club's flat. That doesn't equal easy. You're hitting a round object with a flat surface. Golf's hard.
Real hard.
No doubt about it.
I mean, you could hit a great shot and it could end up horrible, right?
Yeah, and let's not even talk about the variables, the wind and the
Right.
bounces and things that could go wrong and make a good shot bad or a bad shot worse.
And I'm sure you've played team sports growing up, but what do you think's the biggest difference between golf? You're isolated out there.
Yeah.
versus a team sport?
I think time. It sounds kind of cliche and corny and cheesy, but you got more time to think. And in sport, especially when you're struggling or fearful or nervous, time's your enemy. You mentioned your basketball career, now you're playing some tournament golf, so you've probably noticed if you can react or if you have a teammate to unload the ball to or lean on versus golf, where it's just you.
Yep.
It's just you, and
this ball knows what you're thinking.
it seems to sometimes, but that walk to a green or that walk between holes after a bad hole, that's a lot of time. That can really weigh on your mind and make it more difficult.
Yeah, and it's like basketball. If I'm having a crappy game, I could pass to somebody. Somebody might not know that I have some doubt, or I'm just in a shooting slump and I'm afraid to shoot.
Sure.
A coach could take me out. You can get saved.
Yeah.
And I think in golf, you can't get saved.
Yeah.
And I think what's the hardest part about golf? Just playing on the PGA Tour, because it's like every day does that ever snowball and just build up?
Yeah, of course. Of course it does. Everything can build up, everything can snowball if you let it. Biggest thing about golf versus sport is if I have a bad day, my score is beside my name. If in a team sport, if the Chicago Bears have a bad game, it says Chicago Bears 10, New York Jets 17. It doesn't have Caleb Williams' stats under there.
Just blame it on the coach.
Well, yeah, or that in Chicago.
Right.
But I think knowing that you're fully responsible, and even though a lot of golfers blame a lot of other people, the reality is their name's on their bag and they're hitting every shot. So it comes down to, it's me. It's me. And I think that's probably why this game drives more people crazy than any.
Well, and
because it's me.
The 125 players get their card, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to make it 100, which I think is crazy.
Yeah, that's probably a topic for another day.
Gotcha. But so 125 players. I mean, just to be on the tour, you could be a pro basketball player and make $50 million and get 3 points a game. Golf, you gotta go out and prove it.
Yeah. That's the beauty of our game. It's been a meritocracy forever. If you play well, you keep playing. If you don't, you got to go earn it again, or you might not ever get back.
Yep. And as Bob Rotella said, golf's not a game of perfect.
Yeah.
So I know you went through, like we all have, and that's why people are going to relate to you.
Yeah.
You had the highs and the lows. So adversity for you came in the form of the putting yips. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I remember like it was yesterday. I 4-putted the fifth hole at Colonial Country Club, probably about 12 years ago now, and I don't know why, but all of a sudden, it just happened. And looking back on it now, 12, 13 years later, there were a lot of change going on in my life, a lot of things going on, some positive, but some that required more responsibility, like getting married, getting ready to have a child. And all of a sudden, I wasn't the only person that I was responsible for. There's a lot of reflection in that. But, and then after that incident at Colonial, I just remember thinking, when's that going to happen again? Is it going to happen again? What do I do if it happens again?
The what if?
Yeah, the what ifs, the unsure, and just the uncertainty, not knowing why it happened. Not knowing if it would happen again, all of those things. And all of a sudden it started recurring more, and developed a full case of what we call the yips.
So there was a one-time occurrence where it happened, and then after that, the aftermath was kind of like, do you remember being nervous on that putt that you missed?
No, I remember saying to my wife after the round, she said, we got in the car to leave the course after, of course, being, now looking back on it, the worst thing I could have done is I went to the putting green and putted for an hour and then got in the car and left. And she goes, just out of curiosity, what happened there? I said, I don't know. It's the first time in my career on the golf course I could actually say, I don't know. She goes, well, explain that to me. How do you not know? You've been doing this your whole life. I said, I could not feel my hands.
Interesting.
And I felt like I had zero control over the putter.
Yeah, what does it feel like?
I would relate it to a panic attack. I lost all faculties. I lost all motor skills. And as an athlete and as a golfer, our touch and our feel is our bread and butter. And all of a sudden, I didn't even feel like my hands were attached to the club. and I hit this putt, and it was literally, what was that?
So it wasn't nerve-wracking while you were doing it, it was right after. You're like, what the hell was that?
Yeah,
basically?
I didn't know at the time. I'd never experienced that, and then the questions started creeping in, and then, as I said, it just kept happening, and then it got more and more. More and more,
debilitating.
yeah, debilitating is the right word, and
It's kind of like a monster, and it's hiding, and it's waiting to.
Yeah.
It's lurking everywhere.
Yeah.
Waiting to.
Exactly right, and then you got the uncertainty of, when is it going to get bad? Is this as bad as it's going to be? What's worse? And for years, I'd hit a nice shot, sub-iron from 185 yards to 12 feet, and most guys walking up to the green would be, all right, good chance at a birdie. I was literally petrified of making a bogey.
Yeah.
And it fed down into all parts of my game.
So you're like intensely avoiding an outcome versus U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Seeking success and aggression. It was a different
Yeah,
mindset.
my entire mind changed. My entire mindset changed. It was more of, don't mess up instead of do something good, do something proper, do something well, be aggressive. And all of a sudden, I lost my aggressiveness. I lost my joy of playing and putting, and my whole game suffered, because all of a sudden I thought I had to play perfect.
It puts pressure on your iron game, because you're
puts-
like, I got to hit a perfect drive, perfect iron shot. If I don't, I got to be 15 feet so I can cozy it up there.
Yeah,
Right?
and then instead of 15 feet, good player, 15 feet, you're trying to make them.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
You're supposed to try to make these, and if you roll it a couple feet by, you just go up there and knock it in.
Right.
There was no go up there and knock it in for me. It was a petrifying experience.
So it turned into a lot of self-doubt, and obviously probably a hit in confidence. Did you have any just internal negative self-dialogue about yourself?
Yeah.
Maybe some labels you put on yourself after that?
Yeah, I was convinced I was mentally weak, and that I had to change my approach. I had to get mentally stronger, all of those things. And I'm also from the school of hard work pays off, and you can outwork anything. And at the time, I thought I could outwork it.
Sure.
I thought I could come out here and putt for hours and make 2-footers, and then I'd get to the tournament the next week and I couldn't miss because I did all that. And I slowly realized that you cannot simulate that pressure and that monster, as you said. Great term. I went through sports psychologists, I went through putting coaches, I went through putters, I went through everything to try to combat what I was fighting. And it was a fight.
Yeah.
It was a fight. And the worst thing about it is something I alluded to earlier. At the end of it all, I knew it was me. I didn't know why, I didn't know how, but I could blame it on the putter. I could blame it on not working hard enough. I could blame it on this putting coach not helping me. But the reality was, it was me. Because of golf, and because that score's beside my name.
And everybody sees it.
Yeah, that's me. And
I mean, I just can't imagine how hard that would be on the tour. You got cameras, you got people, you got your peers that see the scorecard, right?
yeah,
And just it had to be maddening. I mean, you hit a perfect drive, and then all of a sudden I have a friend who had the same thing, and super mentally strong guy. He played football, #1 punt returner in the country, played in the Rose Bowl, played in the NFL. Super mellow, most mentally strong person I know. He gets the putting yips. So he's a +2 handicap, right? If he goes like with a cell phone, like this, with just by himself, his hand will go like that. So it's what do you think is like the root cause, or is it different for everybody?
nervous system issue, honestly. It's a fear thing, and it's a survival thing. And I'll tell you how bad it got for me. My yips and my putting was so bad that I felt sorry for who I was going to have to play with
Wow.
the next day, because if it happened, I was scared that it would affect them negatively, and I didn't want them to have to watch me.
Wow.
And you want to talk about fear.
Yeah.
That's when it's low. That's when it's bad, is you so conscious of what you're doing that you're worried about it affecting somebody else.
So there's almost some shame there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time shame. Big time shame. And never even thought that could happen to me. But like your buddy, I'm pretty mellow, and everybody that sees me is, how could this happen to Lucas? He's so mellow and chill, and he's been doing this his whole life, and but it did, and I mean it could again. But now I'm equipped to fight it.
And did you ever have any panic attacks on the course?
Yeah, I had a panic attack on the 15th green at Monterey Peninsula during the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I had an amateur partner, and then I had one 2 months later on the 8th hole at Bay Hill during Mr. Palmer's event.
Walk us through that, like what that felt like.
I've never had a panic attack outside of golf. Yeah, I was playing nice at Monterey that day, and I'd hit a 52-degree sand wedge to about 12 feet. It was about 15-mile-an-hour breeze, and I had this downhill left to right putt. And I rolled it by 2 feet, and I marked it, and I stood up to read it and remark it, and I dropped my ball. All faculties were gone. And my caddy at the time, Coop, he came over and he goes, "You good?" I go, "No, I'm not." I said, I don't know how to make this putt. He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, and this is 4 or 5 years into this, and he's going through this with me and watching me and trying to help me, and I mean, we got hypnotized together to try to beat this thing. I mean, we were tight, and this was the first time this had happened, and I said, I don't know what to do. He said, "Well, what? I don't understand what you're asking, what you're saying." I said, "I don't know how to hold the putter."
Did you tell him it was a panic attack, or you didn't know? You figured it out
I didn't
later?
know. I didn't know. I said, he said, "Well, we got to try."
Yeah.
And it was about 2 feet.
Wow.
And I hit it 6 feet by.
Wow.
I mean, it was just like that. And then I missed the next one.
Your heart's racing.
Oh
you
yeah,
can't
heart's
think.
racing, sweating. It's 48 degrees and windy, and I'm sweating.
How'd you finish the round?
I remember finally shaking it in the hole and stepping up on the next tee and hitting a nice tee shot, and I was shaking still.
Wow.
And the guy I was playing with, Charlie Belgian, who had a similar incident at Disney, actually when he won. And we walked off that tee, and he put his arm around me. He goes, "I don't know how you just hit that tee shot."
Wow, he knew.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I said, "Charlie, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry you had to watch that, and I'm gonna do my best to get this in the house." He goes, "Well, I'm here if you need me." And that was very cool of him to say.
Absolutely. Good guy.
Yeah, but that was the first one, and then number 8 at Bay Hill was a little different. That hole's very popular at Bay Hill because there's water short, and a lot of people like to watch that hole, and they got the big grandstands around it, which is rare on the front nine at a tour event to have that many people around a hole on the front. And same exact thing. This is 2 months later, and I had a 10 or 12 footer, and next thing you know, I made a 7.
Yeah.
So just completely lost all mental capacity, all motor skills.
People always ask me what it feels like. I've told this when I interviewed Tyson and some other folks, but I had panic attacks. My biggest fear was talking to people. It happened out of nowhere. I was always pretty good with people, right? I was 19 in college, talking to someone like this. I had a panic attack. I didn't know what the hell it was. I didn't talk about, I'm 49, so stuff like that back then. And all I kept thinking was, I got to get out of here. I got to escape. What the hell was that? And then I just kind of went on with my day. It happened again, and it just kept happening. So anywhere I went, if there was a person, I got a panic attack. So what I did was I avoided it. So I stayed in my dorm room for 2 weeks. I didn't go to class. If I did finally go to class, it was one where if I had to speak, I left. I would sit in the back. I didn't go on a date from 19 to 24. And it was the what if. It was, what if this happens again? I'm screwed. And it's like someone puts a gun to your head when we're just talking. Probably what you felt like. Your physiological system goes into overdrive.
100%.
Fight or flight.
Yep.
So you feel it, in your stomach first, and it's this intense fear, and you're just like, oh shit. And then you can't think, you can't do anything. So I can't imagine trying to play golf and do that, and especially with something like a 2-foot putt, which it's hard. Like you just tighten up over those putts.
Yeah.
But the big problem was the self-judgment that I put on myself, because I didn't know about it. If somebody would have said, "Hey, you just had a panic attack. It's normal. You're not alone. Everybody gets this," I would have been fine. But I thought I was alone. I put these self-judgments. I didn't want to tell anybody. Yours is different because it was, it's public here on TV. So you avoided it, and that just makes things worse.
Yeah.
And I think what's so interesting about your story is it didn't seem like you really avoided it. It seemed like you just kind of kept battling through this and kept going.
I thought I could outwork it. And so that kept me coming to the golf course. And that kept me practicing my full swing and the rest of my short game and all parts of my game. But I'd always begin and end making 100 3-footers in a row.
Sure.
That's the oldest trick in the book, right? Yeah. Well, that was very counterproductive. I didn't know that then. I know it now, but I didn't have a choice. My job was to play golf,
Sure.
or is to play golf.
Yep.
And that's how I feed my family, and that's how I support my family. And I'm a very lucky man. I have a very wonderful wife because of golf, and to maintain that, I had to keep playing, and I had to figure it out. And I did. I had some nice years. I mean, I made Tour Championship in 2019 with the Yips.
Sure.
And
Hell of a ball striker.
well, yeah, exactly. I hit it really good that year. That's right.
Yeah.
Really good. But it took a long time for me to your point, you didn't talk about it.
Sure.
Nobody wanted to say it. It took a long time for me to be open with it. And I think that
Did you
was,
get like therapy at all, or go to?
yeah, I did everything.
Yeah.
Did everything.
That's what I did. Too.
Did everything,
Yeah.
and nothing worked because I wanted to keep it in-house.
Sure.
I didn't understand that everybody's fighting something. And since all of this has come full circle, I've kind of beaten it and gotten over it. And I'm not going to name names, but I've had double-digit tour players come up to me and talk to me either about putting, chipping, drivers,
Yep.
everything that they're feeling something similar with. And that really meant a lot to me, A, that they would trust me with those talks,
Yep.
and B, that, all right, that saying's true. Everybody is going through something.
Absolutely. You don't know what's
You
going
don't
in
know
someone's
what's
head.
going on in
Yep.
somebody's head.
You know, we've seen it with a ton of golfers that just get frozen and locked up. You got Kevin Na, who had a hard time just swinging and letting the club loose. Tiger had chipping yips. Ernie Els 6-putted in the Masters. Rory's missed a couple close ones. Jordan Spieth. How difficult is it to play this game? It's just so hard, and to not be tense and uptight. So I mean, it's pretty common. People, especially in golf, I have a hard time with it sometimes, just getting the swing going.
Yeah.
Because I actually deal with shanks. So, you know, I got to a plus handicap at some point, but every swing I take, it's in my head.
Yeah.
Even when I'm playing well,
Yeah.
it's in my head. And
Yeah.
even, it's funny, when I watch TV, when I'm confident, I could see the shot, like a 175, whatever. I'm like, all right, I could hit a cut into that. But when I'm not confident, and when it's going sideways, I'm like, I don't even know how I keep that ball from not going in the water.
Right.
Like, I got to think of just making contact with the ball.
Sure.
So it's avoiding failure. I was hitting the other day, it's just avoiding failure versus target oriented. So I think that's,
Yeah, there's a lot of schools of thought in that but the main thing with fear is you're worried about the result, as opposed to, like you said, worrying about something good or worrying about making contact. All right, so I'm just going to aim at the middle of the green, hit this solid. All right, well, there you've already freed your mind up. All right, so where it goes doesn't really matter. My goal here is to hit it solid. All right, that's an aggressive, that's a positive, that's a something other than result oriented. Hit it solid. You can do that putting, chipping, you know, or you shoot, you know, you get the free throw, you up shooting hoops. All right, I'm going to focus on my follow through here. I'm going to watch the ball spin, or I'm going to feel it leave my fingers. Anything to take your mind off of what if I miss?
yeah, you
What
look
if I
at
hit it in the
baseball
wall?
players like Ankiel and Tyler Matzik and
Yeah.
Steve Sachs, Chuck Knobloch, all
Yeah.
these guys. You know. So you took Steve Sachs and Knobloch, they would throw from second base into the outfield,
Yeah.
into the stands,
In
over
the
first
stands.
base.
Yeah.
But if you blindfold them, I guess Sachs was doing this before the game, he can make a perfect throw.
Yeah.
It's just when in the game he gets tight,
Yep.
and so it makes sense.
Yep. Totally.
But you know, I think what's interesting, crisis is universal, and that's what's interesting about your story. You know, it leads to doubt. There's these obstacles in the way to the path where you want to go. How severe, I guess, was the self-doubt that you had, and did you think that you could overcome it?
I never lost faith in myself that I could eventually overcome it. I was highly doubting myself when it was at its worst, but never did I think I wouldn't get over this, I wouldn't persevere, I wouldn't come out on the other side. Remember Brian Dawkins, the biggest thing in Clemson guy, he's our only Hall of Famer, football. I remember one of his quotes from his speech in the Hall of Fame was, the best thing about going through something, you're gonna come out on the other side.
Strong.
And I just remember that, think, you know, eventually you're gonna come out the other side. It's up to the person, it's up to the individual, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. If I had never gotten over it, I'd still come out the other side, but then I would have turned my focus to, all right, how do I help people with this? How do I help people that are going through this, et cetera, et cetera? So the result's up to the individual. But it is true, there's crisis, every walk of life, every business, every sport, and it's how you manage it, it's how you handle it, and how you overcome adversity, overcome the things that lead to that, and that'll determine the result on the other side.
How did you overcome it?
Hard work and a different mindset.
So I interviewed Jason Kuhn, a Navy SEAL, but he had the throwing yips, was a potential baseball college prospect. Out of nowhere, just wasn't nervous, interleague game, most wild pitches on record in a row.
Yeah.
And it was the same story.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't nervous, but then what do you do after it creates anxiety and fear?
Yeah.
He avoided, all of a sudden he couldn't throw. So he had to quit the game he loved,
Yeah.
Which I think is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
But I know you met Jason and know a little bit about his story.
Yeah,
A lot about it.
my agent and longtime friend, Mac Barnhart, had heard of Jason being a Braves fan because of his work with Patty Matchek after the World Series and hearing their story and reading about their story. And Mac had been on me for about a year to work with Jason. And I was kind of liking what I was doing with the guy I was working with at the time and was seeing some success, and then another step back. A couple steps forward, step back. Step forward, 5 steps back. And it finally got to a point in the spring of 2023 where I finally said, Mac, I think I need a change here. I think I need to try something different. So he and I started together just on Zoom calls, had a plan laid out. And 2 weeks into that, I got really fed up, not because of anything he was doing, but really fed up, and I ordered a bunch of left-handed putters and some long putters.
Okay.
And I said, whichever show up first, I'm going to use. So talking to Jason, one of our Zoom calls, one of our meetings, I said, I'm thinking about changing putters, going to something drastic. He goes, that's only going to speed up what I'm trying to do. I said, why? He goes, you're basically teaching yourself a whole new motor skill. He goes, I think it's great. I think it's
almost
genius.
tricking the brain, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You're going to reset the brain. We're going to teach yourself a new skill. He said, on top of what we're doing, he said, that's only going to speed things up. The biggest thing with Jason was, sports psychology, and a lot of psychology in general is relax, breathe, calm, all of these things. Well, Jason being a SEAL, his was more of an attacking nature, more of a military approach, more of a, when this comes, we're going to beat it in the ground instead of stepping away from it and not embracing it. And his saying was, I'm going to give you a toolbox here to combat all of this. So when it happens, and it's going to happen, and he continually said that, he goes, I'm going to give you the ability to beat it. I said, okay. But the biggest thing Jason convinced me of was that I was not mentally weak. And I said, well, how can you explain that? How can you explain that? That was always my question to him. I don't understand how you can say that. He goes, Lucas, you've been fighting this for 10 years and you're still on the tour.
Man.
He said, you've been fighting this every day and you've still showed up to work. You've still done pretty good, not as good as you could have, but you've still done pretty good. And that shows you how mentally strong you actually are. And boy, I needed to hear that at the time. I needed that
So you
so
defined
much.
the problem.
He 100% defined the problem, why it happened. It's not mental, etc. But him convincing me that I was mentally strong as opposed to mentally weak, that got me over the hump. I had some episodes. I missed some putts. But it was never that complete lack of touch, lack of feel. No, if I missed a short putt, I missed a short putt. It happens. It's happened to everybody, and it's going to happen to everybody. I'm going to miss them. I'm going to miss one next week somewhere. But it won't be because of what I was going through. It'll be because of something physical. I made a bad stroke, or I made a bad read, or whatever. But that different approach, that separate approach, that more attacking approach of, I have this, it's beatable, and here's how we're going to do it. And through 10 or 12 Zoom meetings and some hard work and some different mindset and a different approach and a different putter, I had the summer and fall I had last year.
I love it. So what were you thinking, and then what do you think now?
What was I thinking? Don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it. And now it's, honestly,
Yeah,
screw the yips, I'm burying this.
I love it.
Seriously. So I'm looking at the target and only the target. And I set up. And my last thought is solid.
Love it.
If I hit it solid from there, I can't miss it.
So you're not like John Daly, or Tiger, who walks around 10 times daily, doesn't look at all.
Well, not from there.
Yeah.
Not from there.
He's knocking it in.
I'm pretty I'm pretty into the reads, you know, but from there,
You're just staying aggressive.
if I hit it solid, I can't miss it.
Think about it. There's a guy, Jason, who I know. He doesn't know anything about golf. I asked him to go golfing. He goes, I don't play golf.
Nope.
I'm like, what? So he doesn't even play golf, and he taught a pro golfer who struggles with putting how to make 4-foot putts. I mean, that is wild.
Shorter than that. I wish 4-footers
Right.
were the
What
issue.
was the shortest he missed?
Oh, I missed tap-ins.
Come on.
Yeah. No, you it's embarrassing.
No, I get it.
No, I mean,
Wow.
yeah.
And that's the maddening part.
Yeah. Like I've missed so many that a regular golfer would never mark.
Yeah.
They would walk up and tap in. Well, I'd mark it and then miss it.
I mean, we're both athletes, so if I miss a layup and there's a crowd there,
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed,
Yeah.
but then after it, you know, I'm going to be extremely pissed off.
Yeah, and beating yourself up and
Yeah.
asking why and all those
Which
things.
is interesting, though, because it's funny you said that. I like the aggressive mindset versus passive. You could get in an office, a therapist, breathing, and which works. I get all that.
I'm not
But-
discounting
No,
that
I'm-
for
I'm-
some people. It
I'm the
didn't
same.
work for me.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
So we're both pretty low key. I don't know how I'm sure you're a fiery guy with sports, but in sports and in life, I'm more intense actually.
Sure.
And I probably just appear more low key, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing an interview like this, I really have to build myself up.
Sure.
A ton. I got to prepare my ass off, but then I got to do a lot of self-talk. But a lot of it, I get really tough on myself.
Yeah, sure.
But I got to build myself up, and it's more of an aggressive mindset. If I'm scared, if I'm passive, then I could actually get a panic attack.
Yeah.
Another Navy SEAL I interviewed, Mark Devine, calls it embrace the suck.
Yep.
So even if you do miss, that guy's in the military getting bullets shot at him, there's some perspective there maybe.
Yeah, that's their motto.
Yeah.
That's their motto going into Hell Week, and embrace the suck. And I've used that. I've used that when I've had some nerves come up on a short putt. I say, well, you got to embrace it. That's one of the tools we talked about. Most interesting thing about Jason and Stonewall Solutions, his company, is their model, their presentation works for anything. They've done that. They've done football teams. They've done major corporations.
Yep.
They've done golfers. They're doing tons of golfers now. But it just works, and it works for certain people, some people with certain mindsets. The way to fight it, as opposed to stepping away from it or trying to avoid it, was the defining part for me.
Absolutely. You know, I coach kids, my own son, you know, he gets nervous like we all do before a game. And the courage is getting in the ring.
Yeah.
So that's courage. You should take pride in that, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
So sometimes we get so outcome oriented instead of, hey, let's go out there and fail. And there's some courage in that you can take home.
Yeah. Well, every failure is an opportunity to improve, whether that's sport or business or life. You know, I'm 45 now, and it's a lot easier to reflect when we're 45 or 49. I didn't know this when I was 35.
Sure.
But every failure, everything that goes wrong is an opportunity to improve, an opportunity to be better. And I learned this from Jason as well. He goes, the end of all of this for you will be turning around and helping people.
Love it.
Which is what he's done. The end of his pitching Yips, the end of his chapter of his life with the Yips is now turned to helping people. And that's what gives me the most peace, thinking I'm past it, is now I have people coming to me saying, A, what'd that feel like? And B, how do I get over this?
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of been the full circle part for me, just as it has been for Jason, and it sounds like just like it has been for you. You know, your son, my daughter's dealing with it, hitting the softball. But I'm equipped to help her, you're equipped to help your son, Jason's equipped to help other people. And
once confidence goes down, like for a kid at baseball, it's pretty lonely up there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a lot of self-doubt,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it could snowball on you.
Oh yeah, 100%.
What would you tell, I guess, your daughter or any kid that's going through struggles, adversity, failure?
At this point, it's focus on what you can do, and focus on your little bubble inside that batter's box. And for her, it's, you know, you just make the best swing you can make. And if you hit it, great. And if you strike out, you're an 11-year-old girl that gets to come home and hang out. Big deal, right?
Respect.
Mom and Daddy are going to love you no matter what.
Right.
And she's hard on herself, and that's fine. But I don't ever want her to get to a point where that result is going to affect her life or her day the rest of that
Identity
day.
is not defined by
Your identity is not defined on strikeouts. And she wears 99, Aaron Judge. And I've used his statistics to explain to her. I said, Aaron Judge's best year, he batted about 310. 318 or whatever. I said, that's about 1 out of 3.
Right.
I said, the best player in the game hits it 1 out of 3 times. And she said, really? I thought he got a hit like every time. I was like, no. And then you can see those little things, those little anecdotes. All right, she's 11, doesn't really understand statistics, but when I explained to that, she's like, oh, okay, I thought he hit it every time.
Right.
So,
that's like Kobe Bryant when he was 10. He had 0 points the entire year, 10.
Yeah.
And the thing that changed it for him, his parents told him, I don't care how much you score, I'm going to love you regardless.
Yeah.
And that meant the world to him.
Yeah.
That it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
And then he started putting the work in. And he incrementally got better year by year.
Yeah.
But I think incremental progress is interesting too. I'm sure you had, was that part of the process with Jason?
Yeah, it was.
Like short-term achievable targets, which is Navy SEALs too.
Yeah.
Go from here to there.
Here to there, A to B. And and it was. There was a lot of mental work, but there was a good bit of physical work, but it was different physical work. You know, whereas in my outwork it stage, it'd be an hour and a half, 2 hours out here, my back would be sore, it'd be hurting, and he goes, dude, you've been doing this your whole life. You don't need to putt that long.
Right.
He goes, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
He goes, and it was kind of cool too, him not being a golfer, because he goes, how hard can that really be? You know, to his don't practice as much point. I said, that's fair.
Right.
So it was the changing of my practice, the changing of the whole approach to it. Learning a new skill, like you said, with the new putter. It was just a big, giant brain reset.
Like the hole's not a threat anymore, right?
No.
Was that part of the problem? Was the hole before was a threat?
Yeah, and it became fun to come putt.
Yeah.
It became fun to come learn something new. It became a new challenge to hit the wedge up there 10 feet, and instead of freaking out about 3-putting, I got an opportunity to make a birdie. This is going to be cool, and I can be aggressive because I'm not freaking out if I got the 2-footer coming back.
I mean, think about that for like anybody, my kid, if they're struggling in basketball or whatever, temporarily, they think it's permanent. It's the end of my life.
Yeah.
And then it makes practice kind of difficult if you're not seeing rewards.
Yes.
You did that for a decade.
Yeah.
So that had to be pretty miserable, that part of it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then to feel the love of the game again.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me about that.
Yeah, it was demoralizing to have that mental battle and to come out here and make everything I looked at, from short, from long, speed was great. And then every week I'd go back on the road being like, all right, I got it.
Yeah,
this is the week.
That's it.
It's over.
Yep.
And then that first or second green,
Right.
and it was, and then I'm back to square one.
Right.
And now I'm looking, again, the worst thing was, new putter, new putting coach,
Right.
new setup, new claw, new everything. And I was defeating the purpose of any of it by trying to change to fix it and then outwork it. And then it was just this big cycle. And then again, I'd have a couple weeks off. I'd putt. All right, this is the week.
Yep.
We're back. And then boom, first hole, yips.
And then the interesting thing about crisis, you find out who loves you. Who, since you've been, say, 3 years old to 45, who has sacrificed for you to be here and be successful?
Everybody close to me. I mean, my family, my poor wife going through this, and I thought I was competitive until I met her. But watching her have to watch me was as hurtful as anything, because she wanted it so much for me that it drove her to a mental place that she didn't deserve to be.
Okay.
And conversely, my mother, who's my mother, it was all love, all, you're going to get through it, you can do this. But my poor wife believed that.
Sure.
But she had to watch it. And I can only imagine how many times she said to herself, what are we going to do if he can't do this anymore? And what are we going to do if he can't play? What are we going to do if he can't get it in the hole?
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, we got to start making some career choices. And
Did you think about that, like of quitting ever?
oh yeah. Not.
How close to quitting were you?
I was last spring when I made the big change, and before I saw some results with Jason, I was starting to really think about options, broadcasting and whatever that may be. I still had my card, I still was able to play, but there comes a time when everybody has to think about it. And I was there.
I mean, how hard is it to dream big when you're filled with doubt and just not feeling confident?
Yeah, it's impossible, to be fair. It's impossible. Or it's possible, but it's not really realistic. So those are kind of the same things.
Sure,
it's not realistic, it's
or
impossible.
to hold on to some form of hope too, right?
Yeah, it got to a point, can I keep putting my family through this? Can I keep putting my wife through this? Can I keep putting myself through this? And
Are you sleeping well?
No, not great.
And then you got to show up every day on tour.
Yeah. Never had any incidents, never had any issues with other guys.
Sure.
Very supportive. Nothing like that was going to drive me away. It was just and I didn't want to. It was a responsibility of having a family that made me realize that I may have to hang it up here because
Sure.
I have to provide. And if I can't provide like I need to, then I got to do something else. And I think that probably played a part in the healing also, was
Sure.
finally letting my guard down and realizing that I'm actually a human and I have to do this. And if I want to keep playing, here's how I'm going to fix it.
So this has all come full circle. After everything you struggled with, persevered, 2023 FedEx Cup, you win the Wyndham, back-to-back St. Jude, one of the best putting displays in the history of the game. I think you only hit 9 fairways that round, putted lights out. How did that feel just to get back in the winning circle?
It was great. Obviously, Wyndham, winning there, close to home, about 3 hours, tons of family there, was awesome. My kids were there. But leading up to it, had 4 or 5 weeks of just great golf. And you could kind of see it coming. You could kind of feel it coming, and I was making everything. The turning point was probably in Detroit. I had a 2-footer after hitting this unbelievable bunker shot, and I missed it. And it was strictly a miss. It wasn't nervy.
Yep.
It wasn't yippy. And I had about a 40-yard walk to the next tee box, and before it'd have been a shameful, self-loathing, beating myself up situation. But that was, dude, you missed one. It was almost funny.
Right.
Birdied the next hole.
Man.
And then ended up playing great that week, the next week. And then 2 weeks later, I played well again, and I was on this run, and you could just feel it coming. And it culminated at the Wyndham, won by a couple there, shoot 21, 22 under, whatever it was, just making everything, hitting it nice, and now I'm making putts. Hitting it the same, but now I'm making putts. Now all of a sudden I'm in a good spot in the FedEx Cup, going to Memphis. Of course, I love, finished third there the year before, a couple shots out of a playoff, and just feeling great. And the biggest thing going into that week was, all right, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Let's not change anything, kind of the same routine, and just play golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hit it terrible for me on that Sunday. The most gratifying thing of that tournament and that week and that day was my short game kept me in it. Whereas my short game for years and years, it kept me out of it.
So your putter became a strength. Your
Yeah.
obstacle became a strength.
My putting became a strength in last summer and towards the beginning of the fall because of all the work, because of all the new approach, because of the things, and I wasn't hitting it that much different. I'm just making putts.
Sure.
And then only hitting 9 fairways and not many greens there at FedEx on that Sunday. I chipped and putted beautifully, and otherwise I wouldn't have been in the playoff with Patrick.
So putting was fun all of a sudden. You're using it as a weapon instead of a...
Where, like I mentioned earlier, walking up to the green after an iron shot or a par 3 or whatever, being fearful, I was walking up to the green excited.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make this one.
We're going to attack.
This is going in.
Yep.
And another chance to make a putt. Here we go. And it was attacking, positive, aggressive mindset as opposed to being fearful and scared and result driven.
Yeah, it's kind of, this is a silly analogy, but kind of like the forging of a 5-iron, it's steel. Forged through fire, through adversity, they pound it, they hammer it, repeat the process. And what the outcome is this shiny weapon.
Yeah.
And that's what's so cool about your story is you went through all this crap. You never gave up. You had all this self-doubt, pain, affect everybody around you. All of a sudden you turned it around. So that just highlights just the strength of your mental fortitude.
Yeah, well, I proved Jason right, I think, being not understanding that I was mentally strong and then actually understanding it because of the results there at the end of 23.
And then just, just a journey in life for everybody. It's not a straight line to success. It's a zigzag. You go through detours. Sometimes you go backwards, you go forwards.
100%. And that's the biggest message I could give is exactly what you just said. It's never straight. It's never a straight line. And failures give us a chance to improve and better ourselves and those around us.
I think another thing that was so cool, St. Jude, 18, you had to go to a playoff hole. I think 17, you snap hooked it, but you still parred the hole.
Yeah.
But 18, water on the left, perfect drive right next to the water.
Yeah.
Playoff hole against Patrick Cantlay. Same drive again, you had to hit, right?
Yep.
Perfect shot again.
Yeah.
And then you threw your tee and back you.
Yeah.
And to me, that was signified like I'm throwing the past away.
Yeah.
I got this.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got this. Am I accurate in saying that?
I can't say I was thinking that.
Yeah.
But the last year and a half, that's been kind of the mantra is that stuff's rearview mirror. We're going this way. We're going forward.
Love it. And I think the best moment ever, which was outrageously touching, was watching your kid
Yeah.
after the Wyndham, and your boy comes up to you, and he goes, "Daddy, you won.
You won. Yeah.
You won."
Daddy won! Daddy won!
That was powerful.
Yeah, that was sheer joy.
Yeah.
Tears of joy and smiles of joy, laughs of joy. Had my folks there, my father-in-law, and then my wife and sister-in-law got to be there the next week.
Yeah.
So,
And they were all crying too.
yeah, well,
I mean,
so was I.
yeah. How much did that mean to just have your two kids crying and come up to you?
It was
Daddy,
very,
you won.
it was very cool. I'd won the deer. I won the deer in 21. They were there that morning and had to fly home, so they didn't get to be there. But having them there, and then my wife there the next week was pretty awesome.
So they say a hero's no braver than anybody else. They're braver for 5 seconds longer.
Yeah.
So you were braver for 10 years longer. And you had a true hero's journey.
Thank you, Jamie.
And your courage, perseverance is inspirational to everybody.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Awesome.